Imagine a lab where every sample is just a question away. No more frantic searches, no more lost data. The big promise is that can AI tame the deep freeze? By deep freeze, I mean the location management, the freezer management, the sample management that many labs in the world go through day in day and try and understand where are their samples stored and what is that chain of custody that they need to maintain. Hi, I'm Satya, and today I'm going to talk about how AI can be used in freezer management. And I'm a co founder of Scispot. If you don't know what Scispot is the digital brain of your lab, and we convert every lab into an AI powerhouse. We have features such as sample management, freezer management, inventory management, tying the whole chain of custody and what we call as alternative limb system, because I have a deep hatred of traditional limb system and how they are built. And I come from a background of building graph databases, data engineering, and data science. So there's a lot we can do in this day and age to help out labs when it comes to building alternative ELN, alternative limb system. And today I'll be diving deep into the deep freezer management, if you will, and how AI can be used to track your samples, your locations, and be able to build a compliant chain of custody while doing so using AI, using natural language, and also be able to assisting the end user, the wet lab scientist, the CLIA on where their samples are. So yeah, let's dive right into it. First of all, imagine that you are managing a lab and you have certain problems and challenges. So I will talk about those challenges first. Then I will go right into the solution and then do a brief demo of the location manager as well. Okay, let's get right into it. So let's say like your name is Dr. Maya and you are basically struggling to manage your freezer management or sample management. And let's say Maya in this case runs a virology lab and a freezer holds thousands of vials, and one day a critical sample goes missing. So the conflict here is Maya is scrambling through her notes. Hey, where is my lost samples? And she's kind of manually tracking this by going through rows of boxes, and the time is ticking, right? And this causes a lot of anxiety within the lab, frustration. And Maya is using a traditional limb system where she kind of tracks this, but it's really hard to link it back to her experiment workflows or link it back to the inventory or link it back to the instruments, right? So it's kind of like siloed freezer management built in a traditional way. So those are some of the challenges that I've seen in the industry. And the pitfall here is that these challenges not only like causes frustration but causes misplaced or forgotten vials, and the spreadsheet paper or traditional limbs makes you lose like hours of work per week. And the analogy here is like one of the things I heard a few years ago from one of the scientists is when I'm trying to find my sample in the lab, it's like finding a needle in a haystack in the dark, right? And I assume most labs still use manual logs because as I speak to more and more labs, I realize that they all already have kind of traditional log of their samples, of how they maintain different locations, even if they use a limb system, even if they use any of the traditional, legacy limb system there are. And these pitfalls not only like causes inconsistent data, but one of the key aspect that I've seen is in traditional freezer management systems, your locations are not linked to your sample management workflows. And your sample management is not linked to your experiment metadata. And then your experiment metadata is not linked with your results that you're getting from the instruments as you're running through different samples, running different tests, and you passing or failing those samples for those tests. And that's where I feel like this whole deep freezer management, or as I call deep freeze, can cause a lot of frustration. So how can AI solve some of these challenges? Like with generative AI, can we reduce some of the errors that are either caused by handwritten labels, or even if the scientist is generating barcodes, they don't have like a consistent data standards as they transition from running a test, running an experiment, storing these samples in freezer, or processing these samples, and then where is that feedback loop that kind of comes back? So let's look at some of those examples. So Now let's picture this in a smarter way. What would this look like? As we learned like these traditional pain points over the years, SciSpot kind of flipped the location manager into more of an AI powered location manager. What that means is within the SciSpot platform, Maya, the scientist that I was talking about, she can now build a map of rooms, freezer, racks, or boxes using prompt engineering. She can also like ask, hey, where is my sample X? So AI flags the nearly full freezers. And as you're creating these using natural language, you can not only like create boxes, racks, shelves, but AI can recommend what type of plates would make sense, what type of boxes would make sense, what dimension would make sense, and then flag you if your freezer is full, right? So let's say Maya logs into SciSpot, she can like take her Excel and create these rooms, freezer, shelf, racks, and boxes where AI understands like how to map this into a location manager within the SciSpot platform. So that hierarchy, if you will, gets built out. And within that hierarchy, it then kind of gives you how many spaces are available and gives you real time recommendations as you're building out your digital version of your freezer management or your lab management, if you will. So let's say you kind of build that out, and it also suggests where to put your samples, how to structure your plates and boxes. Think of this as like a GPS for your samples. So SciSpot customer usually have tablets in the lab where all of this is accessible through tablets. And currently, we're working on the voice assistant as well. So obviously, currently you can use natural language to ask questions of where my samples are. But the next version of this location manager would be you go to your iPad and you basically ask Cybot to find the samples using the voice search. But right now, it's all supported through an AI assisted natural language prompts. And it also has a capability not just to like search and retrieve your samples, but also be able to store samples in a smart way. So, for instance, if I'm running a sample for a particular test and that sample fails, it has that metadata, it has that chain of custody. If that sample passes and I need to maintain that trail of how the sample moved from plate to plate, it has that intelligence as well using AI. So you can go from like room to freezer to shelf to rack to box in under like 30 seconds. What could have taken 4 or 5 hours of work of like setting up my digital replica of a lab and then setting up my freezer, setting up my different shelves, racks, boxes, all of that can be done like within 30 seconds using natural language prompt. And you can also drag and drop these layouts in your hierarchical location, which I'm showing you in the GIF, right? And AI recommends what location would make sense for your lab when you're setting this up for the first time. Okay, now, like as you're setting up these drag and drop layout, you can filter by temperature, model, date, and see the full audit trail for your compliance. It also shows you like how to add a new freezer, if that makes sense. And as you set this up, you can ask a question. So Maya can say, hey, where is my RNA 004 being stored? And it would search across your freezer management or location management and give you the exact location with a hyperlink so you can exactly land within that hierarchical location that you have in your location manager. So why I think AI will play a huge role when it comes to freezer management, location management is don't like doing 20 clicks to get to the answer, right? As a scientist, all I care about is where are my samples? How do I store them effectively? And can I then track the complete chain of custody as I run through multiple tests within the platform, right? Those are the key problem statement that a CLIA wet lab scientist person might have. And they don't want to run like SQL queries or Python scripts. Like some of the LIM systems I've seen, to get to those answers, you have to run like a variety of Python scripts or SQL queries to be able to like understand some of this. But natural language and some of the AI assisted search and retrieval solve these problems really well. The other thing that I've seen that this solves really well is inputting data, right? So AI is really good at like taking your CSV or Excel and converting that into a hierarchical location within SciSpot. And as you create those locations, one of the other things that becomes important is if I get a new set of samples, where do I allocate them? In what freezer, in what box, in what shelf, in what rack? And getting those real-time notifications from the system is really helpful because then I don't need to think, and I'm not prone to any manual errors as a human being, right? I can get suggestions from the AI and I can find the right location to store my samples within the platform. So yeah, those are some of the benefits that we are seeing when we convert this kind of deep freezer management problem into an AI assisted suggestions at various stages of the user journey for a wet lab or a CLIA. One other thing is, like, as you search for any location or sample with natural language queries, you can easily see that trail in Scispot. So what you've done is you've kind of assisted search with AI as well. So we're using RAG, LangChain kind of embeddings and helping the scientists to find the exact AI assisted way of the whole trail of their location. So if they're finding a box, they can either scan that box or just search, and then it would be able to get you the exact trail, or ask a question as well to, like, say, where is this box stored, how many samples does it have. And then the next step is now layering in the voice assisted search on top of it. So that part is in the beta stage, but for now, like, we're focusing purely on the NLPs and reducing the number of clicks that a scientist have to make to be able to find the right location for their samples. Okay, one other thing I want to highlight is the activity log. So in this case, as Maya is setting up her location for NGS lab for cabinets, you'll see like there's an activity log on the right. So you can see how those racks are being maintained, who's updating them, and if any of the samples are being stored, you have like a very detailed audit trail as part of that flow. So as we've kind of built this out, we're already seeing like some of the metrics. We looked at the anecdotal data from existing Scispot users and found out that using natural language, it's potentially saving 95% of sample retrieval time from their location management module. And in terms of sample traceability, it's 100%. I talked about the chain of custody and how your samples are linked with the tests that you're running, the experiments that you're running, and how it's linked to any of the instrument data that you have, and also be able to like have everything barcoded really well, and to be able to search and retrieve that either through traditional search or through natural language. And interestingly enough, like, I think workflow efficiency is something that's probably having the most impact from moving to like no AI to like assisted AI, where a lot of workflows can now be automated. Meaning, if I need to create bulks of boxes, shelves, and racks, I can ask Scispot AI to be able to generate that. It would not only generate those, but it would suggest what dimensions make sense for my lab. It would also make kind of suggest where I should be storing them, and then it would flag you as you're nearing the 80%, or as you're kind of filling those shelves and racks and boxes with those samples. So the workflow automation piece is something that it really kind of brings a lot of improvement. So you don't have to do any kind of custom automation. If you're using a traditional LIMS, what you can do is you can use Scispot AI to be able to do a lot of these workflows that currently are being done manually in variety of labs. Okay, great. So that was like a brief overview of the location manager and how AI can help automate your chain of custody, your natural language prompts, and be able to search and retrieve the right samples. If you have any feedback or want to see more improvements on where AI can have an impact on improving the freezer or location management for your lab, please let us know, give us feedback. And I'm excited of like where this leads to in few years. I think scientists would be able to use their voice to be able to ask for the right samples, and be able to also update or edit their samples in their freezer with the right location, while maintaining the compliant chain of custody. And if you want to see this in action, go to scispot.com/demo and feel free to book a demo with me, and happy to walk you through this new feature set that we have, where we've flipped our traditional kind of freezer location management into completely AI powered location management on a platform. And I'm happy to like show you and how this works and get your feedback.